this whole huge theatre which is in front of us, as Richard rightly says. We do need to keep an eye on the mainstream news. We do need to keep an eye on everything that's happening here with as many eyes as we have available to us, and this is limited. This is one of the problems. My own interest over the last few months has increasingly gone onto what I believe is the likelihood of a false flag alien attack. And I know that this isn't exactly what we're talking about missile launches and the role of the Chinese and so on. One way just to step back and look at the reason for my interest in this is like, what are the important things that the alternative media can be doing? What role can we really play here? We're doing our best to aid the disclosure effort. And as you and I have talked about, Kerry, many times since the inception of Project Camelot nearly 5 years ago, people are saying, well, where's disclosure? Where's disclosure? And it may simply be that we are being allowed to be, I mean, when I say we, I mean we, and of course hundreds and possibly thousands now when you look at all the bloggers and you look at all the contributions on Facebook and look at all the YouTube videos. The waters are very muddied, but at the same time, disclosure is being permitted to happen. It's being permitted to happen on on a drip feed basis that's also full of misdirects, but with all the clues there, as I was saying about half an hour ago or so, for the bright and the smart and the aware and the alert and those who are good at forming networks and who are smart enough to check their information against that of others, is all there for us to see. Now, what would be interesting, Kerry, would be to ask you, after I finish, to say something about what Carol Rosin said about the likelihood of the false flag alien threat. And I think Richard may well have something to say about that, as he's been a student of the work of Werner von Braun for many years, his contribution to everything that was NASA, and how he became a whistleblower in his own right via Carol Rosin and the Disclosure Project many, many years later. I'm not convinced that it would take a huge high-tech theatrical display. We don't need to have an Independence Day type scenario when you've got, or a V type scenario when you've got these huge ships over major cities filling the skies and terrifying the population. We don't need that to happen. It could be done really simply. And I'm not saying this because I have been given any hints about how this could happen. I've been given some very strong hints that this is absolutely, definitely planned. But if one thinks about it, it is so simple. I'm not saying this to terrify people. I'm saying this because there may be a role for the alternative media when and if this kind of thing happens to really point out as loudly and as insistently as possible that this may be a false flag event. And I just want to paint this picture for others to comment on. And I'd actually like Richard to comment on what I'm about to present. A very simple scenario. Imagine this. You've got a couple of the giant crafts that are well attested to exist. Some people call them the TI-3B. They're giant triangles, 600 feet across, a couple hundred meters across. There have been many, many sightings of these. The informed opinion is that these are definitely our craft. I'm sure that they exist. Imagine them swooping down from a bright blue sky over Manhattan and hovering there. It only needs to be in one city with all the television cameras rolling for half an hour, sitting there over Manhattan. And then there's some kind of, in some very theatrical way, then imagine a beam coming down, destroying the Statue of Liberty and killing a couple of hundred innocent tourists, And then they bring in the F-22s that could be remotely controlled very, very easily so that no good American pilots would die. They're shot out of the sky by these things. The whole thing is captured on television in front of the world. You don't need to have this happening in Sydney and Tokyo and Rio and London and Cape Town. It just needs to happen in one place with the television cameras rolling. And then these things shoot up in the air at Mach 20 or whatever it is, or they just disappear or flicker out of existence, whatever it is they need to do. And then that job is done. The rest of it is done by the media, the rest of it is done by the politicians, just like in 9/11. They could do this tomorrow morning. It would barely cost anything at all. It's so simple. You don't need holograms. You don't need thousands of ships. That's all it would take. And when I really started to look at that and I saw how simple this was, then that really focused my mind. And it may be that one of the principal roles in the next few years of the alternative media is to educate people about this false flag event that has not yet happened. I'd love Richard to say something to
that. Thank you, Bill. That was great. I do want to let Richard comment. I have to also have my own comment here and say that you're absolutely right, although I believe that they'll do a much bigger production when they do the false flag. In other words, that they'll probably show up over multiple cities around the world just simply because they can. But I do believe holograms will be used. I think that's inevitable. And I do believe that there are countless number of people who are convinced that that their galactic federation, for example, is going to save them, and they're going to be rudely awakened sort of on the operating table of various ET races when they jump on ships sort of unaware, as it were. But I'm going to open Richard's mics here and let him comment, and then let's also give David a chance. Richard, are you there?
I'm here. First of all, I agree with you. I think Bill is definitely on point that this could be done. The technology, built by Lockheed Martin or Boeing or whatever. I mean, there's a huge black ops realm that we're not privy to. I know there are insiders who claim to have access to that and to be leaking profligately on that, but just based on what I see from data, from evidence, from, for instance, the night vision stuff, we have some really big craft that could be used in such a scenario. So why hasn't it already been done? See, my feeling is that what's driving everything from our side, when I keep saying our side, I'm talking the human race, the human condition, is that these guys are almost paralyzed to the point where they can only do this on a ritual clock. They can only do whatever they're planning to do on a ritual calendar. And if someone is mucking up the works, throwing sand in the gears to where certain things don't happen, then other things that are planned, as Bill said earlier about sequencing, to take place after those events, if those events can't happen because they've been sabotaged or delayed, then the other stuff has to be delayed. Now, why is delay important? Because, again, like an FBI profile, you have to put yourself in the minds of these characters, these people who, frankly, I think are, by any definition, insane. If they're trying to mastermind the human race into some bizarre scenario where we either all become slaves or all become, obedient robots or whatever, more so than we can look around the landscape and see creeping evidence of this now, then these people are effectively insane. I mean, look at the guidestones. Look at the prescription to get down from 6.6 billion, which is roughly what we are now, down to 500 million, would require genocide on a scale that would make even Nazis probably quail and quake. We're talking the destruction of an entire planetary civilization. Now, some of these guys believe this is already on the boards. That's where we come back to 2012. that this is, in fact, is in the cards. This is in the physics. This is going to happen, and there's not a damn thing we can do as humans to avert it. So they basically have, made their